The courtroom was quieter than usual that morning. People whispered, shuffled papers, waited for their names to be called. Nothing was supposed to be dramatic. Nothing was supposed to stand out. Then the doors opened, and everything changed. A tall man in a navy suit walked in. His posture was rigid, his eyes tired, and yet the energy around him made the entire room straighten. Court Officer Marcus Hale leaned slightly toward the bench and murmured to the judge, "That's Senator William Grant." The room fell into complete silence. Senator Grant moved toward the podium with slow, measured steps. He looked like a man who had lived his entire life in control. But today, something in his face was different. His confidence didn't look real. His hands trembled slightly when he adjusted his tie. His breathing was uneven, as if he had carried something heavy all the way into that courtroom. Judge Frank Caprio noticed it immediately. He removed his glasses, studying the senator not as a powerful man, but as a troubled one. The judge spoke gently. "Take your time, sir. You look a little overwhelmed." For the first time in his public life, Senator William Grant couldn't hide behind his usual shield of authority. His eyes dropped to the folder he held. When he opened it, a single photograph slipped out and landed on the podium. A young girl, smiling, full of light. The senator froze. Judge Caprio's voice softened even more. "And who is she?" The senator swallowed, and the strength he usually carried in his voice simply wasn't there. "My daughter, Sarah." A hush spread through the room. No one expected a United States senator to look so fragile. His hand hovered over the photograph, as if touching it would break him completely. He tried to speak again, but his voice cracked. He looked less like a public figure and more like a grieving father desperate to hold himself together. Judge Caprio leaned forward, speaking with the same kindness that had comforted thousands of strangers. "Whatever brought you here today, you don't have to carry it alone." The senator blinked hard, trying to steady his breath. The courtroom watched him with a mix of confusion and sympathy. Why was a man with that much influence standing here over a simple charge? Why did he look like he was breaking from the inside? Because behind the small violation that brought him here was a story far heavier, a story he had never spoken about publicly, a truth he had tried to bury for years, a truth that was now pushing its way to the surface, right here in Judge Caprio's courtroom. And when he finally lifted his eyes to speak, no one in the room, not the judge, not the officers, not the people waiting for their own cases, was ready for what they were about to hear. It was the kind of truth that could shatter a man's image and reveal the pain he had been hiding from the world. The tension in the courtroom slowly shifted into curiosity. People leaned forward in their seats, unsure whether to feel sympathy or suspicion. Senator William Grant, a man known for his sharp speeches and unshakable presence, now stood struggling to hold his composure. Judge Frank Caprio spoke with a patience that instantly softened the room. "Senator, whenever you're ready, tell me what brings you here today." The senator took a slow breath, trying to steady the tremor in his voice. He looked down at the photograph again, as if gathering strength from the memory of the girl smiling back at him. "It's a speeding violation, Your Honor," he finally said. "But it's more than that." His voice carried a strange mixture of shame and sorrow, something the public had never seen from him. Even the people in the back row stopped shuffling. Every pair of eyes was fixed on a man who usually commanded every room he entered with confidence, yet today seemed afraid of speaking. Judge Caprio nodded gently. "All right, start from the beginning." The senator closed his eyes for a moment. "I was driving on Route 95 above the limit. I wasn't thinking. I wasn't paying attention. The officer pulled me over, and I didn't even try to explain. I just accepted the ticket and left. But coming here, standing here, it feels different. It feels heavier." His hands tightened on the podium, as if he were holding back something much larger than a speeding confession. Judge Caprio studied him quietly, giving him space. Senator Grant continued. "I know people expect strength from me. They expect control. They expect discipline. But lately, I feel none of it. I feel like I've lost myself somewhere along the way." His shoulders slumped, revealing a weight no one in that room had ever imagined he carried. It became clear that whatever he was hiding wasn't about politics. ego, or public image. It was personal, deeply personal. The judge's tone remained steady, warm. What happened, Senator? If something is burdening you, this courtroom won't judge your grief. The senator nodded slowly, trying to gather the courage to speak the truth he had avoided for years. Sarah, he whispered, glancing at the picture again. My daughter. She would have been 16 this year. A quiet gasp escaped from someone in the audience. The senator didn't react. His eyes were locked on the girl in the photograph, and the pain in his face made the room feel impossibly small. He struggled to continue. She passed away 3 years ago. A sudden illness. 1 week she was smiling, the next. His voice cracked. He inhaled sharply, battling the grief rising in his throat. The next week she was gone. Judge Caprio's expression softened even more. I'm truly sorry for your loss. The senator nodded, but his jaw clenched. That loss changed everything about me. My work, my decisions, my temper, and my driving that day. For a moment, the courtroom felt like a quiet sanctuary where a grieving father was finally admitting something he had buried for too long. The judge spoke gently. Are you saying the speeding incident is connected to what happened to your daughter? Yes, the senator whispered. Very much. He lifted his eyes to the judge, eyes filled with exhaustion, regret, and something darker. I wasn't rushing to a meeting. I wasn't distracted by work. I was driving to a place I haven't been able to visit in over a year. Her resting place. A wave of murmurs spread through the courtroom, but none loud enough to break the fragile moment unfolding between the judge and the senator. For months, I kept telling myself I was too busy, the senator said. Too overwhelmed. Too important. But the truth is, I was too afraid. Afraid to face the guilt. Afraid to face the silence. Afraid to face her. His voice dropped to a whisper only the judge could hear. Every time I think of her, I remember the promises I didn't keep. Judge Caprio leaned slightly forward, his tone steady and compassionate. Promises don't disappear when a loved one passes. They shift. They become the reason we try to live better. The senator swallowed hard. I wish I believed that. The judge gave a small nod, the kind that offered comfort without forcing it. You will. Maybe today is the start. The senator looked away for a moment, gathering himself. I didn't come here expecting understanding, he said quietly. But standing here, I can't hide from this anymore. The judge responded in the same gentle tone. You're not hiding now. You're telling the truth. That matters. The senator exhaled shakily, as if letting out years of silence. The courtroom waited, breath held, knowing something deeper was coming. Something that would turn this simple traffic case into a moment far larger than the violation itself. A moment that would reveal the real struggle behind the senator's trembling voice. A moment that would set the stage for everything that came next. The weight in the room grew heavier as the senator struggled with his emotions. What began as a simple traffic violation was now unfolding into something far more intense. People who had walked into the courtroom expecting a routine morning now found themselves watching a powerful man unravel piece by piece. Senator Grant tried to speak again, but his throat tightened. His hand pressed against the podium, steadying himself. I didn't mean to speed, Your Honor. I wasn't thinking rationally. I was overwhelmed. I had been avoiding that place for so long. But that day, something inside me broke. I had to see her. Judge Caprio listened with quiet sincerity, giving the senator the dignity of being heard. The senator continued. I didn't plan it. I got in the car and drove without realizing how fast I was going. The officer pulled me over, and I didn't argue. I couldn't. I didn't have the strength. He paused, exhaling shakily. But it doesn't end there. The judge nodded softly. Go on. The senator looked down, ashamed. I've kept her room exactly the same. Every picture, every book, every little note she ever wrote to me. I kept telling myself it was my way of holding on. But the truth is, I couldn't accept that she was gone. He lifted his eyes toward the bench. And every time someone asked if I was okay, I lied. I lied because I didn't want to look weak. A senator isn't supposed to break. Judge Caprio's voice remained tender. Grief does not measure a person's strength. It reveals their heart. The senator swallowed hard, his voice trembling. Your Honor, I didn't just speed that day. I was crying while driving. I could barely see the road. And when the officer asked if everything was all right, I told him I was fine. I lied again. He shook his head. I've been lying to everyone. To my staff. To the public. To my own family. And most of all, to myself. The room grew impossibly still. He continued, voice thick with regret. I spent years telling people how to face challenges, how to stay strong, how to remain composed under pressure, but I couldn't follow my own advice. I hid my grief behind speeches, behind votes, behind interviews, behind a polished image that meant nothing. His hands trembled. I even avoided Sarah's memorial events. I told my staff I was attending private ceremonies, but I wasn't. I couldn't bring myself to stand there and pretend I was okay. Judge Caprio leaned a little closer. Everyone grieves differently, Senator. There is no right or wrong way. The senator shook his head, the guilt spilling out. But what kind of father avoids his own child's memorial? What kind of man stands in front of cameras telling the world to stay strong while falling apart inside? His voice dropped, raw and honest. I used my position as a shield instead of facing the truth. People in the courtroom shifted uncomfortably, touched in ways they hadn't expected to be. The senator's pain was no longer political, no longer tied to power or public life. It was deeply human. I know I broke the law, he said quietly, and I know I should be held accountable for it. But what scares me more than any fine or punishment is admitting that I haven't been able to carry her memory the right way, that I failed her. Judge Caprio looked at him with genuine compassion. You didn't fail her. You're hurting. You're trying. And grief is not a straight path. The senator's eyes glistened. I'm tired of pretending, Your Honor. I'm tired of being strong for everyone except myself. I'm tired of waking up every day feeling like I'm running from a ghost. He took a slow, painful breath. And when I sped down that highway, part of me wondered if I was trying to outrun that ghost. But I can't. She's everywhere I go. His voice softened into a whisper. Imis here. Every day. For a moment, Judge Caprio let silence settle. Not the silence of tension, but the silence that allows a wounded heart to breathe. When he finally spoke, his voice was steady and warm. Grief changes who we are. It doesn't make us weak. It makes us human. The senator nodded, but his expression showed he still felt buried under years of unspoken pain. The judge continued, Tell me, what do you feel you've been running from? The senator closed his eyes, and in that quiet moment, everyone knew whatever he was about to reveal next would not only explain his actions, it would expose the deepest wound he had been hiding all along, a wound he had never dared to share. Until now, the courtroom waited in absolute silence. The senator kept his eyes closed for a long moment, gathering the courage to speak the words he had buried for years. When he finally opened them, there was no trace of the powerful public figure he used to be. Only a father trying to breathe through pain that had never healed. His voice came out low and fragile. I wasn't just running from grief, Your Honor. I was running from the last memory I have of her. He tightened his grip on the podium as if that memory were physically pulling him down. I've replayed it in my mind 1,000 times. The last day she was alive. Judge Caprio's expression softened even more. Take your time. The senator inhaled shakily. Sarah had a fever that morning. Nothing alarming. Just a simple cold, or so I thought. She asked me if I could stay home with her. She said she didn't feel good. His voice trembled, and I told her I couldn't. I had a major vote scheduled, a bill I had been working on for months. I told her I'd be back early. He paused, and the courtroom felt the ache behind every word. She said, Okay, Dad, I'll wait for you. That was the last thing she said to me. I walked out the door, and she never woke up again. A deep breath, a breaking voice. Her condition worsened so quickly. My wife rushed her to the hospital. By the time I arrived, she was gone. You could hear someone in the audience inhale sharply. No one had expected the story to carry this kind of sorrow. The senator's voice cracked entirely. I keep thinking if I had stayed, if I had just listened, if I hadn't chosen work over her that day, maybe things would have been different. His throat tightened. Maybe she would still be here. He wiped his eyes, not bothering to hide the tears anymore. Judge Caprio spoke gently, the steadiness in his tone grounding the entire room. Senator, you're carrying a pain that no parent should ever carry. But you cannot blame yourself for something you could not have foreseen. The senator shook his head. I was her father. I should have been there. And every time I look at her picture, I hear her voice telling me she would wait for me. She kept her promise. I didn't. A soft, broken laugh escaped him. I didn't even get to say goodbye. The judge paused before responding, choosing his words with care. Grief often convinces us that we could have rewritten the past. But the truth is, we are only human. We do the best we can with what we know at the time. The senator's eyes glistened. Then why does the guilt feel so heavy? Because your love for her is heavy, the judge replied. That love didn't disappear when she did. It stayed, and you've been carrying it alone. Those words seemed to reach a part of the senator that had been locked away. His shoulders lowered. His breath steadied. It was the first sign of release he had shown all morning. Judge Caprio continued, his tone warm and firm. You didn't fail her. You loved her, and she knew that. Children don't remember missed moments the way we fear they do. They remember the love, the hugs, the laughter, the time you did give them. Sarah knew who her father was. The senator's chin trembled. I haven't been able to believe that. That's because you haven't allowed yourself to grieve, the judge said. You've been punishing yourself instead. The words hit him hard, like truth finally breaking through a wall. You drove too fast that day because your heart was running from a wound you never tended, the judge added. But today you've stopped running. You've spoken her name. You've spoken your truth. The senator nodded slowly, the pain in his chest loosening for the first time in years. I didn't expect kindness here, he admitted. I came prepared to be judged. You were judged, Caprio corrected softly. As a father who loved his daughter so much that losing her almost destroyed him. That is not a crime. For the first time since the hearing began, the senator looked directly into the judge's eyes, not as a public official, not as a broken man, but as someone finally willing to let the truth heal him. His voice steadied. So what do I do now, Your Honor? Judge Caprio leaned back slightly, his expression thoughtful, compassionate, certain. You start by forgiving yourself, he said, because that is the one decision that will change everything else. The senator let out a slow, trembling breath. And in that moment, the turning point arrived, not with dramatic gestures or loud emotions, but with a quiet acceptance that his healing had finally begun. The courtroom grew impossibly quiet, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. The senator, once towering, commanding, wrapped in the armor of political power, now stood exposed in a way no camera had ever captured before. His eyes glistened, not with arrogance, but with something far more human, something far more fragile. Judge Caprio leaned back gently, giving the man a moment, allowing him to feel what he had spent years outrunning. There was no shame in the judge's expression, no trace of victory, only calm understanding, a kind of stillness that made people soften without being told to. Senator, the judge said softly, you've spent a long time trying to be strong for everyone else. But strength without honesty is just weight you can't carry forever. The senator swallowed hard. His throat tightened, his jaw clenched. For once, his instinct to fight, argue, or dominate disappeared. All that remained was a man confronting his truth. I didn't mean to disrespect the court, he murmured, voice shaking despite his effort to control it. I've made mistakes, more than the public will ever know. But this is the first time someone actually saw me. Judge Caprio nodded lightly. Everyone deserves to be seen, even those who are used to standing behind podiums instead of being held accountable. Those words didn't humiliate him. They grounded him. The audience behind him shifted, watching the scene transform. Cameras rolled, but for the first time in his career, the senator didn't seem to be performing. He wasn't shaping a narrative. He wasn't crafting an image. He wasn't protecting a reputation. He was simply a man telling the truth. Judge Caprio's voice remained steady, firm yet gentle. What happened that day could have been handled differently. But today, you showed something I don't often witness in this courtroom. The senator looked up, confused. And what's that? Humility, the judge replied. It hit harder than any insult ever could, because it wasn't a punishment. It was a recognition, a rare one. For a moment, the senator's shoulders dropped. Years of pressure seemed to loosen, falling away like dust. His hands, once clenched in frustration, opened slowly at his sides. Judge Caprio continued, I'm not here to ruin your career. I'm here to remind you that even people in positions of power must remember where they come from. The law isn't meant to intimidate. It's meant to guide, to correct, to protect. The senator nodded, eyes lowered. And what happens now, Judge? What happens, Caprio said, leaning forward, depends on whether you walk out of this courtroom as the man people fear or the man you just allowed yourself to become. The senator exhaled, a long, shaking release of years he never processed. I'll do better, he whispered. Not for the cameras. For me. Judge Caprio gave a faint smile. Then consider this an opportunity, not a punishment. And with that, the gavel didn't slam. The court didn't erupt. Nothing dramatic happened. Just a quiet moment. A powerful man finally learning that real strength begins where fear ends. As the senator stepped back from the podium, something in the room shifted. It wasn't the cameras or the reporters or the spectators leaning forward to catch every breath. It was something quieter, something almost invisible. For the first time since he'd entered the courtroom, the senator walked without the stiffness of a man protecting his image. His steps were slower, steadier, more intentional. He paused at the exit, glanced back at Judge Caprio, and gave a small, sincere nod, the kind only two people who truly understood each other could exchange. Judge Caprio returned the gesture, his expression soft, not triumphant, not superior, just human, because in this courtroom, dignity wasn't taken. It was restored. The senator pushed open the heavy doors and stepped into the hallway, where dozens of microphones immediately rose toward him. But he didn't stop. He didn't smile for the cameras. He didn't craft a statement. He didn't hide behind staff or security. He simply kept walking. Sometimes the most powerful thing a person can do is choose silence over performance. And sometimes the world doesn't need a scandal. It needs a moment of truth. If a story moved you, if you believe that accountability and compassion can exist in the same room, then take a second to support the channel. Because here, every story reminds us that behind every title, senator, officer, parent, judge, there's a human being fighting a battle we may never see. Subscribe, share the video, and remember, one moment of honesty can change a life, even for someone who thought they were untouchable.